Friends, under normal circumstances, we would invite those who have suffered a bereavement in the previous 2 years to join together for a time of worship and fellowship. Since we're not able to do that this year due to the coronavirus restrictions, I offer this reflection for you. Please feel free to light a candle and add any readings or music that would help you to reflect on the life of your loved one. A reading from Psalm 119. O God, remember your word to your servant, in which you have made me hope. This is my comfort in my distress, that your promise gives me life. Friends, it has been a long and difficult year. For those who have experienced the loss of a loved one, this would have been true in any case, but the pandemic has made everything about death and dying much more complicated and very different from our previous experience. Some of you were lucky, though you didn't know it at the time, that the death of your loved one occurred before the lockdown was enacted in March. You were able to sit in the hospital during their last days. You were able to plan a funeral service that included hymns and eulogies in the church or at the crematorium, whatever your preference was. You invited all of the guests you wanted, and then you probably made arrangements for a gathering afterward, when everyone could sit around, tell stories, and enjoy a bacon roll, trebec, or a pint. But those who experienced their loss during the height of lockdown were not so fortunate. You were not able to stay with your loved one in the hospital, or your time with them was restricted. The funeral was subject to strict limitations on location, singing, and number of guests, and the social time afterward didn't happen at all. And all who have experienced a death in these recent times, whether before or after the lockdown began, have had the normal flow of grief disrupted. The things that we do, both to fill the time and to help us begin to heal, these normal things simply weren't possible. You might have thought to go out with a friend for a coffee and a cry, but the cafes were closed. You were ready to start sorting through belongings and share some things with the local charity shop, but they were closed too. You wanted to stop in at the hospital to thank the staff for their caring attention, especially when you couldn't be there, but you didn't want to get in their way when they were overwhelmed with so many others who needed their help, and you knew they couldn't accept the selection box anyway for the risk of contamination. On the other hand, you may have found some unexpected gifts in this timing. Many aspects of life have slowed down, so perhaps you weren't expected to leap back into normal responsibilities or a full schedule. If you were working from home, no one had to know or interfere if you needed a bit of time now and again to shed a few tears or take a few deep breaths. Perhaps you were grateful for the limitations on social gatherings, so you didn't feel obligated to put on a brave face. Or maybe you found that family or friends who are normally very busy had more time available to check in with you. The situation around us, now or any time, can help or hinder us in our grief and healing, just as the people around us can be useful or problematic by what they say or do, or what they fail to say or do. Often when I lead a funeral, I invite the families to remember the behaviors, attitude, or priorities of their loved one, characteristics that they can use as inspiration or guidance for their own daily living. Conversely, there may be some things to let go of, imperfections, or conflicts left unresolved. Belaboring these things won't change them, but learning from them and releasing them can illuminate a healthy path forward. I invite you to continue that process, and perhaps also do the same in light of the context in which you have mourned. Perhaps you regret that you were not able to be with your loved one when they passed into eternity, or that the circumstances of their committal or burial could have been different. Perhaps you've been frustrated with the slowness of your own healing, or the feeling that your grief during or after lockdown has been 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I invite you to acknowledge these feelings, but not cling to them. Your loved one now rests in eternal peace, free of all limitations, in a place that is beyond brokenness, guilt, or resentment over past wrongs, real or imagined. And I invite you to be gentle with yourself, Treat yourself with the kindness, honesty, and respect you would give to a much-loved friend. Affirm the things of value and release the things that should be released. Allow this mixture of grief, remembrance, and gratitude to shape your words and your silence and guide your actions and your rest in ways that encourage healing and help you to engage with the world in ways that are constructive and life-affirming. If that remains too overwhelming for you, consider searching out an appropriate mentor, a wise friend or a trained professional, someone with the skills and commitment to help you sort through these things. Sometimes the context, as with this year, presents particular obstacles for our grieving. Sometimes our healing is complicated by a challenging relationship with the one who has died. We cannot change those things, but we can choose how we respond to them and how we integrate the experiences into our lives. The months following the death of a loved one are a strange and difficult time, even without the virus. My hope is that the gift and challenge of the life that you and I have shared with those who have commended into eternity may serve as a catalyst for the days and years that are still before us. May love shared or love withheld serve as inspiration for us to love more generously, more humbly, more freely. May the challenging environment and the restrictions under which we now live never confine our thoughts or limit our capacity to reach out to others. Instead, may we perceive every context and situation as an opportunity to receive and share peace, hope, life, and love. I invite you to pray with me now, or if that is not your practice, to hold a gentle thought for your loved ones, those near and far, and those who have passed into eternity. Almighty and everlasting God, all of creation rests in your care, and your love for your people is without end. Come to us in the midst of our grief, that we may find comfort and new strength. Help us to release the things that should be released, and to affirm the gifts, the lessons, and the love we have received through these our loved ones, whom we lift up before you. Revive in us a hope, a commitment, and a purpose for the days and years that are still ours to be lived, that we may delight in your presence and offer ourselves in service and praise, until at last we join with all the saints in light who glorify you and enjoy you now and forever. Amen.